All right, well, let's start with our quick interview. It's going to be, I would say, rather a straightforward Q&A. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and then a little bit about Miden as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm Ben Schiller. I'm originally from London. I've lived in New York about 15 years. I've been covering the internet since about 1998 as a journalist. So until recently, I was at CoinDesk for 6 years covering crypto there as a managing editor. And before that, I was also engaged in a blockchain startup called Breaker. And before that, I was at Fast Company magazine. So I've been covering blockchain, crypto stuff for about 11 years and the internet itself for about 25 years. I'm really dating myself here. So I guess my perspective is kind of that long, development of the internet, and what really drew me to Miden and really to the privacy space is that I think it's kind of closing a loop or closing a kind of unmet kind of goal of the original founders of the internet to have privacy, to really have proper self-sovereignty on the internet. So I kind of feel like Miden and a number of other privacy forward startups out there are really trying to complete what was really promised to us in the beginnings of the internet. So that's a little of my backstory. And I started with Miden about a month ago. So if you have any very technical questions, I might have to.
Oh, don't worry. I'm not super technical myself.
Someone else on that. I'm not like a ZK expert by any means, but I can give you the kind of non-technical version.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why don't you give us a non-technical version? Because I'd rather hear a non-technical version, just because I feel like those type of versions are the most revealing, I would say, for normies like myself, and just overall, when we talk about use cases. So please, sir, give us a little bit about Miden.
Okay, so I mean, we call ourselves at the moment the Edge blockchain, and the idea of the Edge is that the proving of the transaction takes place not on chain, but on the user's own device or their own computer. So that's a very important difference between our project and even some other ZK projects, but definitely some normal blockchain projects, that you're taking that computational load off the network, and you're also taking the responsibility for the proving of the network and out of the hands of the project and giving it to the user. So that is very privacy promoting, hopefully.
That's very interesting. And I know that, you guys have a lot to do with Polygon and how it kind of like the Miden kind of was born in the Polygon labs. So what sparked Miden's spin-off from Polygon, and what blockchain gap does it fill?
Yeah, so I mean, Polygon, was a very important project. Still is a very important project. I wasn't around when the spin-off happened, but I think there was thought to be a big opportunity in being a more independent project, and there was definitely funding available from A16Z, 1KX. Hack VC, Finality, a few others wanted to invest. So we put together this round for 25 million.
Which is amazing, by the way.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And, I think it's like being part of a family, and, it's good to be part of a family, but you also want to have your own company, your own operation, and you can grow more quickly as an independent entity. So I think that was the reason. And obviously, as we go towards mainnet next year, probably in the second quarter of next year, it makes sense to be an independent entity issuing our own tokens. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, allow me to double click on the raise that you guys did with A16Z and others and other VC firms. $25 million is no small potatoes. And so I was just wondering, like, what surprised you the most about raising 25 mils, and how did it change the priorities, or like how did it maybe, I guess, adjusted it? And just overall, A16Z, like, what's it like dealing with them?
Well, I mean, they're an amazing company. Obviously, probably the most famous VC company out there, and I think any startup that gets an endorsement or money from them is doing well. They're great to work with, and actually, they just produced a report yesterday called "The State of Crypto 2025," and I'd highly recommend your listeners to check that out because it's a very good kind of summary of what's going on in the crypto space and the kind of stage of development we've reached. But there's actually a big chapter in there about like how this is the age of privacy now. That the new cycle of crypto and blockchain adoption requires a more privacy-facing technology layer. So I think the investment makes sense, financially, we hope, but also in terms of this kind of big trend of where they see the blockchain space going towards this more privacy-centric model, which is often, in their telling, based around ZK technology.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk about privacy right now with Zcash recently became like a huge push on X and on Twitter. Like everyone's talking about this, so everyone's kind of concerned that their finances are not private. Like they even like throw some shade at Bitcoin, saying like, well, with Bitcoin everyone knows what you have, but with like something like other, and I'm not shooting for them for anything like that, but I'm just saying like that's the trend right now. And I can see that based on the VCs as well, trying to kind of like move capital towards that industry, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I think it's kind of one of the strange things about blockchain in general. I've been, covering it for 11 years. Is that for a lot of the times we've tried to make the case for blockchain technology by saying that it is transparent. For instance, when law enforcement, I'm going to get to the point. I mean, when law enforcement has complained about like blockchain technology and crypto and saying that it's enabling money laundering or terrorism or whatever, we've often pointed to the fact that it's transparent as a way to beat back that argument. But actually, that wouldn't be really the argument that you would use in the long term to talk about the advantages of using blockchain in financial services. Because if you work on Wall Street, the idea that all your transactions and all your networks transactions should be fully transparent isn't really a great thing. You want that privacy, you want that confidentiality. You don't want to give away all your trading secrets by having a completely open chain. So I think that leads logically towards privacy preserving or private transactions, which is what Miden and a few other of our competitors are enabling. So I think while we have to play the game of regulation and play the game of giving law enforcement what it needs, the actual kind of trend line in crypto is actually away from this public transparency of the public blockchains, the Bitcoin, the Ethereum public mainnets, and towards these more private networks, which allow institutions, companies that are moving lots of money, to do so in a secure and private manner.
That's right. And speaking of, just a quick caveat here. Speaking of law enforcement and all of that mess, have you heard the news today that CZ got pardoned? I just was curious about your quick take on that type of thing. Like, what does that mean for the industry?
Yeah, that's amazing. I was actually with CZ quite recently in Tokyo. He was giving a speech there. I interviewed him, and it was kind of really interesting to see him because he'd come out of prison last year for 4 months, and he's no longer working at Binance, and he seemed very different to how he was in the past when he was, one, running Binance, and two, fighting what seemed to be the world's governments and regulators that wanted to bear down on him. So I think this pardon is like the kind of the full end to that whole story, that the kind of fight for legitimacy, that fight for adoption of crypto that he fought so long as the founder and CEO of Binance, and then going, getting into the crosshairs of the last administration and the Treasury Department and those regulators that are really going after crypto and really arguably trying to kill crypto and kill companies like Binance. To see him finally getting a pardon now from this new administration is almost like a full circle from that period, the full sort of exoneration of CZ and everything he set out to do, 10, 12 years ago when he started Binance.
Yeah.
So
it's like a real vindication, and as you said, exoneration as well. And I have a feeling he's going to go more aggressively now on his, as you said, like a decade-old plans, and maybe it's going to be more aggressive in terms of adoption of crypto in different countries as well. And perhaps the United States going to be more open to Binance as being like US based as well. And we're from Toronto, right?
Yeah.
And they kind of Binance left, and I talked to CZ I think 2 years ago during spaces like that. And I asked him about Canada. He's like, "Yeah, we're not planning to come back to Canada at all, but maybe sometime in the future." So I'm hoping that's gonna kind of like be the case. So.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting question now about CZ. Obviously, when he was making this deal with the U.S. authorities, he was saying that I'm going to have nothing to do with Binance, especially the U.S. operation. He was going to leave it to other people to run. And he brought in this very sort of Richard Tang, this very kind of regulation-centric kind of guy, like a brilliant auditor guy, to run Binance. But I guess the question now is like, does CZ come back
exactly
and play more of a role within Binance going forward? I mean, it sounds like honestly he's pretty happy not doing the kind of day-to-day of running a big company like that, and he has his own family office. And some big, new investments he's made through that office in AI and in decentralized AI, and particularly in platforming kind of free technology for education around the world, online education, which he seems to be very passionate about. So I could imagine that he's not looking to get back into the kind of day-to-day running of a crypto exchange, that he really wants to go off and do some of these other things, because he's incredibly gifted at running and starting startups. So maybe and I think that's where his passion is, running with different founders, starting new businesses, new projects. So I would imagine he would be coming back to Binance day to day, at least in a hurry, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, yet to be seen, but definitely, I think something's gonna shift with him, and he'll. I mean, because that kind of frees him to do like more stuff, I guess, in the finance area. But it's yet to be seen. Well, let's go back to Miden and talk about the vision a little bit. I'd like to talk about use cases, and specifically Miden's use cases for public and private transaction apps. How do you guys usually talk about yourself as far as like when you explain like, okay, this is what it's useful for, this is what it's been used for, or in theory or in the future that's what we're planning to use it for?
Okay. I mean, just to be clear, we haven't launched yet.
Right,
so,
still in testnet. Yeah.
This is a little bit theoretical. We do have a Pioneers program that has about 9 or 10 different projects on it. So you can kind of see what Miden will be used for when we launch next year, and where we really see ourselves going forward is as a place for building private financial applications. So being a chain for private assets. So that could be for central limit order books, clubs. That might be for different types of DeFi activity. It could be for AMMs. Definitely, that's a clear use case for us. And
the way
decentralized exchanges as well.
Absolutely,
would be another use case.
I was looking into this, and I guess the number one kind of like great things about this is just like Miden scalability, and the fact that you can kind of push all the compute and all the all of that kind of volume of transactions and compute and everything that's happening onto users' devices versus kind of having it somewhere else centralized. That's something that really allows Miden to scale and I guess cover more broadly like much larger projects, and that's something that it's very attractive, and I feel like a lot of companies also trying to attempt that as well, but it seems like there's a lot of trust that's investors put in you because they see something in you. So I was just wondering what's your take on it, like.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. It's something I hadn't really thought about before I joined Miden about a month ago. There is a strong relationship between technology that preserves privacy on the one hand, that also can enable greater scalability for the network. Because, as you say, if you're taking the proving of the network itself off chain, and that's also freeing up a lot of capacity for greater scalability. And the jury's still out a little bit, but we think we have a greater kind of scalability, headspace, ceiling than some of our competitors out there that seem to have limits in terms of the amount of throughput they can do, the amount of scale that they can reach. So that becomes a question if you're really building on a network that you want to have a big headroom and allows you to grow bigger with your application, then you really want a partner like Miden that's going to help you to do that. So that's definitely one of our advantages compared to some of the other privacy-focused projects out there.
Absolutely. A little bit of on the technical side, but I was wondering maybe you can shed light a little bit on that. As far as the biggest technical hurdles, like any sort of challenges, what's been like, I guess, one hurdle that you've overcome so far as a company, or is it yet to be seen because everything's going smoothly?
Well, I mean, this is a bit above my head, but one thing we did very much release recently that I think was very important I know was very important with the developers, is that we produced something called a Rust compiler. So Rust is a very common development language, and again, this is quite different from some of our competitors, which have their own languages or are using much less kind of well-known languages to program. We have this Rust compiler, and it's built in a language in which most blockchain developers are already using. So that's an advantage of coming onto Miden compared to some of our main competitors. And that just came out a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and I also you mentioned that you guys wrote a report on state of encrypted. Did I understand that correctly?
No, that was A16Z.
Okay, and did they mention Miden? Is what I'm assuming.
They didn't actually mention. I don't know if they mentioned Miden,
or maybe they just spoke about privacy in general, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, they spoke about a whole new generation of privacy startups that were coming on board and really were coming of age now because institutions had basically a different set of needs to individual or retail crypto users. So,
I mean,
I think that's
I just want I'm interested about your take about this because on one hand, privacy is great and you can at least you can know that no one knows what you're up to and no one knows where your money is or what you're paying for. But at the same time, it's also a little bit shady, right? Like if you're looking at it from the money laundering perspective or anything like that, and you could see why the SEC was very adamant about that before, and I'm not sure how they're acting about it right now. But how do you balance this? Privacy is good, but at the same time, privacy can be dangerous. What's your take as far as governmental agencies trying to control that, and how do we overcome that?
Well, I think that's a really interesting. I mean, forgive me for saying so, but I think even in the way that you put the question, kind of points that some of the problem around this conversation on privacy. I think there's kind of a supposition in your question and really the attitude of law enforcement generally is that if you're engaged in privacy preserving technology like a ZK startup like we have, then necessarily you have something to hide, that somehow you are enabling bad actors to do bad things on the internet. And I think that's just basically flat out the wrong way of thinking about privacy. I think, the default should be that we have privacy, and we should have technology that preserves our privacy in the internet, on-chain environment. It shouldn't be something that we should apologize for, or that people should necessarily think it's going to lead to bad things. And we always have to point out that the existing world, that's not on chain, also involves a lot of money laundering. And you could argue that cash itself is a privacy preserving technology. So
Right.
are we going to outlaw cash because people do bad things with cash? I think that's kind of the wrong way to think about it. And I think we really need to really reframe the conversation with regulators and with law enforcement to say that, privacy is a fundamental right that we have as human beings, regarding our identity or regarding our financial life. And it's really up to law enforcement to prove that they have an overriding need to see into our privacy, to get into our ID, to get into our financial transactions. It shouldn't be something as a matter of course that they have access to. So I think, the privacy technology that we have should be the default, and then, anything that erodes that privacy should be the non-default thing. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how even in 2025, crypto has this narrative problem and this PR problem, I would say, where people still think there's something shady with it. Like even in Canada, when I talk to someone outside of the industry and I mention crypto, it's like they cringe a little bit just because they find it somehow very remote from them and something that they cannot fully grasp, but they would rather have a negative connotation. And obviously it's changing, it's shifting in a positive direction right now, but it's still a lot of work to be done. But you're absolutely right. I mean, you can treat cash exactly in the same way, and the amount of money laundering and crimes happening with cash and just with the United States dollars, it's far greater than with crypto, I'd say.
Totally. So,
So yeah,
how is it in Canada? Is it the same as in the US? Is it?
well,
Do does law enforcement look down on
I would
privacy
say
coins and privacy chains?
100% our as in like state oversight of crypto is much stricter than the United States, and that's why a lot of companies are actually. We have a great community. We have a great Web3 community here in Toronto and around Canada as well. But as far as regulations goes, Canada is definitely behind the world on it. We're more conservative. There's a lot of oversight. Anti-money laundering agencies are always kind of like on top of that, and they're trying to kind of like impose additional regulations. Same with, let's say, Ontario Securities Commission. They're making the job really hard for startups. Same with FinTrack, because like a lot of agencies who are over, like we have like one industry, but there's oversight from like 5 layers, I would say. The hope, of course, for a lot of community here is that because the United States is becoming kind of like a front runner for deregulating a lot of things, especially with their consumer market. The hope, of course, is that the United States and Americans will build those rails for us, and then we will have no choice but kind of like switch to the crypto rails as well, like with stable coins, for example. We're not doing anything with stable coins at all right now. We had some attempts, but no one's actively advocating, including our government and members of parliament and representatives. No one wants to touch the subject just because, first of all, I feel like um, they're not educated enough, but also
Yeah,
they're all waiting for some sort of a leader to step in. So we're all kind of just in a waiting game.
interesting. Has there been any change since Carney came in?
Absolutely none. We have not seen any sort of speech or remark or a note or something about crypto. It's just like I feel like that's just not something on the agenda right now. We have a lot of problems in Canada, and I feel like those are being tackled. We have shortage of housing, and of course those problems exist in a lot of other countries as well right now. But
Right.
our I would say economy right now is definitely at its worst since like decades, I would say, as far as the GDP goes per capita. So I think they're just not putting crypto on the agenda just because we were burned before. Like there's a lot of exchanges. Quadriga in particular, I would say, was the one that kind of stole a lot of money from from Canadians. And I think since then, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. That was quite a story.
Yeah. So we're getting back there, but again, I'd like to point out that Canadian community, we have so many great developers. Like right now, I'm speaking out of the hackathon build station by Solana Super Team, and we have a lot of participants. I myself are actually participating in the hackathon myself. It's a lot of talent. That's kind of like Canada's story right now. We have a lot of tech talent, but it's very hard to find home in Canada. Like we're nurturing it, we're growing it, but like retaining it is definitely an issue, which is basically the mission of Toronto DAO, to retain talent. Yeah. Speaking of Solana, I know that you guys are spun out of Polygon, and I wanted to see like what's beyond Polygon. I saw the tweet by Miden that you're bridging to Solana ecosystem, fully shielded by Miden's privacy layer, and I was just like, I thought that was pretty cool that you guys are open to other layer ones and you're working with them. Could you comment on that?
I don't know anything about that. I'm sorry.
No worries. It looks like it's something like privacy layer with Dome protocol coming soon. So I guess it's something really, really new. And yeah, that's. Tell me about marketing, for example. Like, how do you guys? Are you just kind of focusing on building, or are you in the process of establishing those kind of like strategic partnerships with other players in the game?
Well, that's very much what we're doing at the moment. So we've announced a series of partnerships recently with a number of companies, like for instance Ligero, which is part of the Google CK Wallet initiative. We just announced with them. We just announced a big security audit with Open Zeppelin last week. And we have this, as I say, we have something called the Pioneers Program, and that has a number of partnerships in there with more early stage. I think you might be referring to the one with Dome Protocol. I think they're working with in the Pioneers Program. I'm sorry, I don't know anything about it.
No worries at all.
I know something about it, but you've caught me off guard.
I was just, because that's something that I'm passionate about as well. I feel like there's a lot of value in creating strategic partnerships, and I was wondering, like, what are you guys doing in that area? But looks like you guys are doing well, and I mean, partnering with Google stuff, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we're not short of partnerships. We have a lot that we've announced through the program and independently, and there are a few more in the works. So as I said, it's very much privacy season. Everyone wants to be a part of this. There's money going around. There's developers focused here, so it's a good time to be in this space.
Absolutely. And speaking of the audience and just like the user base, how's the feedback so far? Like, what are you guys seeing right now as far as like testnet goes? And are you in touch with devs? Like, how are you responding? Is there any communication right now that's happening between Miden and just the users?
Very much so. So, I mean, that's the focus. A lot of our DevRel team and our partnerships team, they're a very important part of the project. And, at the moment, Miden is, it started very much as a team of engineers that was spun out of Polygon, and slowly we're adding, more business, more of a business side to that development team. So, but the original kind of core group of maybe 15, 20 people is mostly engineers, and they're all engaged in different types of partnership to build out the chain that we want. So we're ready for mainnet next year.
Let's talk about next year for sure. So 2026 milestone, obviously mainnet. Will it make Miden a confidential computing leader? Like, how do you see yourself positioning in 2026? Because it feels like it's going to be a huge year for you guys.
Yeah. Hopefully, we've been targeting 26 for a while. The timeline's moved back a little bit, but definitely by the end of the second quarter, we'll go to mainnet, and we'll have the token launch. So we haven't actually made any announcements about this yet, so I can't talk too much about it. But yeah, stay tuned. 2026 is going to be a big year for announcements for the mainnet and for the token launch, which we're pretty excited about.
That's amazing. You talk about engineers before, and I'd like to talk a little bit about like company identity and the culture. And I think that would be kind of like my final question for you. What's one key team value that's helped build Miden's culture?
Well, I think very much we have a culture of respect. I think we have led by Bobbin Threadbare, who we should definitely mention here. Bobbin has been in the ZK space for at least 10 years. He led ZK development at Facebook originally, what became Meta. When they were developing DM and Libra back in the day, this is in 1819. And then eventually after Facebook, he went to Polygon, and then he started working on Miden, and then Miden was spun out. So, but he's somebody who's very much a developer, and he's attracted an incredible team of other engineers who very much have a culture of improvement, of respect, of collegiality, which I think is very nice to work around. People trying to help one another and to grow together. And we very much come from that engineer improvement culture of respect and improvement.
That's amazing. Ben, I actually wanted to ask you one more question. I see that you are a producer of Happenstance, and I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of a rundown on what is Happenstance.
Oh, yeah, please. So in my spare time, I write plays, and I wrote one play that we produced in October 2023 here in New York City. It was a story about a Bitcoin developer who was going to prison for some code that he developed. And I based the story on Charlie Shrem, who was one of the first Bitcoin developers to go to prison in 1314, accused of money laundering. And then obviously there were a number of other people that went to, Bitcoin developers who went to prison over the years, including recently actually the Ethereum privacy guys like connected with Tornado Cash, etc.
Right.
So it was very much a story about the criminalization of coding, and it was kind of dramatized with some problems that this guy was having with his family and his girlfriend. So it was kind of a comedy around Bitcoin development and prison, and and at the end of the play, he goes to prison. But I'm actually working on a new play now that is about the same guy, and he's been to prison, and now he's coming out of prison, and he's gotten a presidential pardon. So actually, when you were talking about TT
right.
and a few other people, it's quite relevant to what I'm working on.
Oh, that's fantastic. So how can people go see it? Like, is it in New York, or where do you stage it?
Well, like Miden, it's going to come out about the second quarter of next year.
Oh, that's fantastic! That's fantastic. I love this idea that we're doing plays now, and that is related to crypto and Bitcoin. And you certainly are a very interesting person, because you're so diverse. I would say, as far as you're working in tech, but you also working, I would say, in like theater and creative, and it's so great. I feel like we need more people like you.
Oh, thank you very much. I mean, I love crypto so much because it's got so many different interesting aspects and people and ideas, and this privacy space. I obviously knew a bit about it, but coming into it in the last few months, it's everything I love about crypto. It's kind of the people, the ideas, and everything from the cypherpunks to the bankers, and it's a real cross section of people in the space. So it's great.
100%. Well, Ben, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your answers, and I'm looking forward to tracking the project and seeing it succeed. Ben from Miden, everybody.
Thanks very much for having me.
Of course. Is there anything you would like to promote besides, of course, Miden? And we already talked about your second play, but the floor is yours.
No, I think that's everything. It's been a pleasure to come on the podcast. Thank you, Samir.
Of course. Thank you so much, Ben.
And hope you have a good day.
I thank you so much. I appreciate it, and have a wonderful day for you as well, sir. Take care.
Take care.